had like a couple big weeks. You've been all over, and you're leaving again.
Yeah, tomorrow. I'll leave tomorrow.
You're
Get up to Anderson so I can be there Wednesday morning to speak in chapel.
You're not leaving till tomorrow because you got to make sure you have all of tonight to watch the Cowboys play, right? They're playing Monday
No,
night.
I've got elders meeting tonight, so.
Oh, the nerve of those guys. Scheduling that versus the Cowboys game.
I don't know that I want to see any more of the Cowboys
I
this
know.
year.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
It's so sad. You get your hopes up so much in the preseason, and you know.
Tell me about the experience. I've wanted to ask you about this, and I haven't had the courage, but I'm going to ask you. Tell me about the experience of watching a Clemson football game with Miss Deborah Brunson.
Oh, my gosh. So, listen, Saturday it was awful, too. You know, the dogs and I sit over there in that chair, and we just tremble when they start losing. We just start shaking, you know. But listen, literally by the end of the game, 2 overtimes, she is down in the floor.
No, she's not.
Yes, she
For real?
is.
I thought you were just joking
No,
on Twitter.
I wished I had taken a picture of it. She's down in the floor, clutching her heart. When what's his name? Breeze, whatever his name is, knocked down the pass so that they
could win.
So that Wake didn't score, and Clemson won. She's down in the floor. I'm having a heart attack. And I said, well, we're just going to sit here and watch it then. But
well, I didn't
wild.
see any of the game. I just saw, so Dabo does the interview afterwards, and he is like so calm.
Did you see how talkative he was? I mean, man, he just went on and on and on and on.
But
and
he
I
had
thought,
a smile on his face the whole time.
Well, he pretty much always does.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
He just plays it cool.
He does. And I'm so proud of these guys. I'd be over there slapping them in the head.
Reaming them out.
Why would you let this get this out of control
He's like,
here?
we'll fix all that with the defense.
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
Really?
Well,
Just hand wave it away.
So, I don't know. It's going to be another one of those kind of seasons.
Well, how about something more encouraging? How'd the Inspire conference go last
Went
night?
really well. Great crowd here
really?
last night.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joanna was leading the music.
Joe
Thank
came
you
and
again,
led the
Joanna.
music. Yeah, so it was really good.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. I know Joe's going to give me an update
I don't know what
later.
they did when they break out of there and go to their groups, because I don't do that. But
Well, one of them, I was talking to somebody from the Sub 30 and said they talked some strategy, but then they kind of finished it up with a prayer meeting, which I thought was really beautiful. They were just praying over the people that they're ministering to.
yeah,
I know,
and this Sunday I'm really looking forward to David Thomas being here.
man, me too. Are you going to be here?
Yeah,
you're
I'm
going
here.
to be here, and
Yeah.
so you're just yielding the pulpit to him, and he's going to talk about
I'm yielding it away.
yielding it. Yes.
It's just such a topic that we're desperately in need of right now. Helping parents, helping grandparents with their children, with their grandchildren, It'll be really good. And I hope our people are going to be bringing folks with them, because this is such a needed, message for this day and time.
It really is. I'm just being a parent myself of really young kids. It's an uncertain time. That sort of thing. Like the way things have changed this day and age. I feel like more than ever, you keep hearing like, well, like look at what these kids are seeing in schools, and that's and you're like, how do you even navigate all this? It just seems like stuff has changed so radically. So I hope that he can give us some practical help from the scriptures.
I think it'll be really good.
I'm looking
Really
forward to it, and I'm glad you brought that up, Pastor, because they are having a lunch afterwards, because he's going to speak
Yeah,
more.
and he's going to get really detailed there in the lunch afterward. In the services, it'll be, kind of a broad, general, but he's going to become very specific for parents. So it's a great day to be here at Valleydale. I think it'll be real helpful.
Well, and for anybody that's watching that you might not have that need to go to the lunch, but you have the capacity to stay. I know that Pastor Chuck was looking for more child care help during that lunchtime, so I wanted to go ahead and put that out there. I guess Jamie and Hannah might talk more about that their little announcement thing on Wednesday. But he needs some more help there.
Yeah.
So that's this coming Sunday. Well, I'm sorry that I wasn't at the Inspire conference last night, but I was at that huge All Nature Sings, like the choral and orchestra thing. We did it at
Did
the
that go well?
Oh, it was incredible.
Was it?
It was a really well organized thing.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, where was it? At the Met over here?
It was at the Alabama Theater.
Now, that's downtown?
That's right. Yeah, on 3rd Avenue. They rented. We all paid a little bit of money, and they rented the whole theater. I'd barely ever even been in there before. But that was a really cool experience. A really good partnership between the churches. I think he said there were 12 different churches that were represented there, and so there was one of the main guys was John Woods. He's the worship pastor over at Dawson Memorial Baptist Church in Homewood. So he was helping a lot. And then the director of the orchestra was David Vaughn from Meadowbrook Baptist Church, which is just up the road here. And there are some people there from Shades and from people from, I think it's 6th Avenue, and then from First Baptist Birmingham.
So y'all just did a big concert.
Yeah, it was just one work in particular. We debuted this new work from Philip Kevrin. So I'm going to have to see. I don't know if they're going to put it anywhere.
What is it like? Is it an oratorio?
Yeah, it is an oratorio. Yeah, you
Is
would have
it really?
loved it. Oh, yeah. It was the big stuff. I'll send, there's a demo recording. It's not us, but there's a demo recording. I'll have to send it to you because it's incredible. Because they just reworked some. They took old hymn texts.
Yeah.
And he just did some.
Did they go all the way through Scripture, or did they focus on one?
Well, his whole thing, he took that line from "This is my Father's world. All nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres." And so that was sort of the leitmotif. And then it begins and ends with this declaration: "This is my Father's world," and that's where it starts, and that's where it ends. I mean, the whole thing, I was glad. The choir was huge, and I felt like I was just crying the whole time. So I'm glad there was other people to sing, because I don't know. That's just so beautiful to me. Just even going back to what David Thomas is going to have to say to us this coming Sunday. I love being able to declare with such force that this world is under the authority of God Almighty, as opposed to any other power. This is my Father's world. Let me ne'er forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, He is the ruler yet. Yeah. My kids have been learning.
That's a great. I love that. I love that old hymn. I remember it from Vacation Bible School. We used to sing for some reason. We used to sing that in Vacation. I mean, I just remember it, as a child, and I've always liked it.
Maybe I need to get the kids choir to sing that.
You know what we did at Pastors Conference? We got all of these animal, kind of like, have you ever seen Lion King?
Oh, yeah.
Where they do the animals.
The live show. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah.
That kind of thing. Well, we got a bunch of those kind of costumes from Liberty University or Thomas Rhodes. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Brought it into the Pastors Conference. Big elephant, baby elephant, giraffes, all these things. And at the Pastors Conference, the choir did this whole thing of "This is my Father's world."
Yes.
All creatures of our God and King.
Yes, absolutely.
And those things would parade through. It was really fabulous. Really neat how they did that.
It's so funny that you bring that up because Jared and I are actually working on something like that where we're going to sing "All Creatures of Our God and King," but we're going to have this presentation on the center screen.
Oh, neat.
As we do it.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I don't know when we're going to do. I might save it until next year because we're starting to work on Christmas stuff. What do you?
Save it to next year. You build me up, and then you just throw me to the floor.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. Maybe we can do it more quickly. Jared's he's furiously typing over there. I can tell he started to work on it immediately.
Yeah, I'm already.
Yeah.
Jared, he's already working on it. He's doing it all on his. He's editing on his phone, Pastor. That's what he's. That's what he's doing.
Is there anything you can't do on that telephone?
I tell you, man, you can do. Well, they're advanced pieces of space age technology.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. I read this book to the kids about the lunar landing, about Apollo 11.
Really?
And it was so much fun because I got to explain all the different steps of it. Now of course I really want to watch Apollo 13 again. But the kids, but it was presented as a story, and there were different chapters, and the kids were like, is the heat shield gonna hold? Like, are they gonna be okay? Is it my daughter's like, are they gonna die? And Harper the whole time is like, they're gonna die, right? Like, they're totally gonna die. I'm like, they didn't die. Josh Pike's over there like, of course nobody died because he doesn't believe in the lunar landing, but whatever.
It was out there in Arizona. They had this place set up out there in Arizona. You ever notice that? We got a hurricane coming.
Yeah, I've heard about
You
this.
know,
yeah.
my son called yesterday. Hey, Mama, my wife doesn't want to stay here. Can we come there? The only place she wants to go is to your house. And sure, if you don't want to, if you don't want to ride it out there, come on
Yeah.
here. That's fine.
They're bringing the hurricane
but
to
for
you.
some reason, every news station, they're already together figuring out what trailer park are we going to go to, and what real, example of Southern redneck are we going to interview. Well, yeah, it came. We got some plyboard. We gonna rebuild. They never can interview anybody, but they don't have a tooth in their head. The
This is
South.
so
That's
true,
not
though.
always the South. That's part of the South.
Well, there's
but
people
it's-
like that everywhere. That's the north, south, east,
No,
and west.
we ain't gonna leave.
That's it. Well, and then they're gonna have those meme
I ain't
videos.
evacuating.
Evacuate.
I ain't gonna evacuate.
Something's been evacuated. So they're on their way to your house, and they're bringing the
Well, I
hurricane
guess.
to you.
Yes, 5 of them.
That's right.
5 hurricanes they're bringing.
Well, that's going to be really fun.
So,
How
if
long is
they
this
come, I
hurricane
don't
supposed to last?
I don't know. We had one tropical storm that came over one time. I can't remember the name
This
of
is
it.
when you're in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and it stopped when it got over Jacksonville, and
Just
it
stayed there?
just stayed for days. And it rained so hard that the rain penetrated the brick on the buildings, and we had to go in and dry the buildings out.
Are
The
you
carpet,
kidding me?
the wall. Yeah, we had to go back around and reseal the outside. Listen, some of those storms can do some weird stuff.
Hey, that's the power of God.
Yeah, it is. It's the power of the world.
Can't wait till we get to the
Out of control.
Can't wait till we get to the plagues and that. Well, not. Oh, I can't wait to be plagued. That's not what I mean. But
And I've got to think about that because we're going to do the 10 Commandments. We're going to pull them out. We're going to do those on Wednesday nights.
yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, that's
And I
gonna
kind of
be
thought
good.
about doing that with the plagues, but I thought, maybe I can do that with the 10 Commandments, but maybe I ought to go through the plagues.
Well, so I've
Maybe
read,
I ought to take them 2 at the time. I don't know.
Well, I've read before that there's by some analysis, each one of the plagues pertains to a particular Egyptian god. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So that could be really interesting. I know that you could dig into that and give us a lot of insight.
Well, it's going to be a long series.
Yeah. Well, you even said it from the pulpit yesterday. We're not going to be done till 2024 or whatever.
Yeah.
Should the Lord tarry, we're not going to be done with this one for a while. Well, let's get into the message from yesterday. You said, now, brother, I do need to, don't need to stroke your ego, but I got to commend you for the insight that you gave yesterday. And I want to take people back through it just a little bit because you're doing such a great job with the relevance of this passage, or these first couple chapters, to where we are, even in our culture today.
Right.
Obviously we're in the modern Western world, very advanced, a lot of scientific discoveries, and also a whole lot of worldliness. And that looks almost exactly like what's happening in Egypt. 2 weeks ago, you gave that example about abortion and how that was something that was basically being practiced,
Yeah.
which also led to a Holocaust
Yeah.
of the Hebrews, which were like in the 20th century, ooh, this is the first Holocaust. Oh, try again.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
4,000 years ago?
Yeah.
And then this week, you brought us to this idea of Moses being trained by the elite academics in Egypt, and the things that they were teaching. Now, where did you? This is so interesting to me. The things that the Egyptians believed about the state of the world and how the world was created,
Yeah.
and even their belief that humans came first from like these larvae that they would find.
Yeah.
Can we talk more about that?
I had a young lady walk out, and she came out, and this is about one of the top 3 questions that I'm asked most all the time, is can you tell me if there's a book that will give me, all of these kind of things that you're doing? For example, I'll give you one that I did not use yesterday.
Oh, okay. That's why we're here.
If you go over to chapter 10, they're in the middle of the plagues, and Pharaoh's servants in chapter 10, verse 7, how long will this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not realize that Egypt is destroyed? Now, the servants these are advisors to Pharaoh,
Yes.
like the president's cabinet. Sure. And they come to him and say, listen, just let's cut our losses, let them go, get them out of here. Maybe it hadn't dawned on you, but we're destroyed. It's just, we're done.
Right.
It's kind of like the Russian army in Ukraine right now. It's just been wiped out.
Really?
Yes,
Wow,
it's destroyed. Well, Egypt never, in any of the writings of the Egyptians, did they ever
admit defeat.
Right.
They
They never talked about their defeats. They would talk about a war, and if they lost that war, they would couch it in such terms that they would never talk about they were defeated.
Right.
The only time I know anywhere in print that is stated that Egypt admitted they were destroyed or defeated, right here.
Here in the Bible.
Now, so she comes out. Now, I didn't say that yesterday. I think I may have made reference to this in one of the services, but I never talked about Egypt never discusses their defeats.
But people like to ask you, well, where do I find all
Yeah,
this
when I
stuff?
get that. And they said, well, where do you get it? And I said, well, there's not a book
Right.
that has all of this. I said, do you know how long it took me to write that? Do you know how long it took me to write this? How long it took me to write this sermon?
A lot. Took a lot of time.
42 years.
Right, 42
Yeah.
years of preaching.
Yeah, I didn't get all of that in one place at one time. Over the course of the years of reading and studying and, things like that, you begin to put these things together. Now,
It's a synthesis.
I will say this, if there's some preacher sitting out there was a Southwestern Journal that was put out back in the 80s, I believe, that was... No, it was a book that was done in honor of somebody. And Dr. Griswold wrote on the origins of the earth. And he discussed, but now see, I read that back in 85.
And it's just up here.
Yeah, and Dr. Griswold had gone through a lot of that. So I just remembered a lot of what he had said about Egyptian cosmogony
Right.
and recalled some of that.
Yeah, you're putting these things together. Some of it you're learning brand new, but
Yeah.
a lot of it, obviously you've studied Exodus before. It's hardly an obscure book of the Bible.
Right.
So, I think that's a good, and I'm not surprised at all that that's a common question you get. Because,
I'm asked that almost as much as anything else. Can you tell me a book where you get that from? No, there isn't a book.
One thing
Can you imagine how voluminous that thing would be?
One thing that I did not understand is when they're talking about, I'm going to jump around a little bit because there were so many really interesting insights yesterday. The overall point of the message, basically, that the wisdom of God always triumphs over the wisdom of man. And I didn't realize how much of the wisdom of man that Moses was subject to.
Yeah.
First of all, I didn't understand that he was probably 4 or 5 years old before he came into the care of Pharaoh's daughter.
Right.
I assumed it was like a year at most, because that's our culture. I guess that's anachronistic of me. Most children are weaned around the time they're a year.
Well, in our culture, they are.
Right.
They were not in that culture. You remember that was a thing that with Abraham and Hagar and Ishmael and Isaac and Ishmael and Sarah, is that they were throwing a party because Isaac had been weaned. And Ishmael was making fun of him. He was, poking fun at him or something. But the boy was on up. So, I mean, it was 5 or 6 years of age, at that time before they would wean a child.
And so that's so important because then you made the point that Jochebed, his mother, was, of course, raising him in fear and admonition of Adonai. And so he comes into Egyptian culture having this base of what he knows to be true. And then
Yeah, that's why you come in Hebrews chapter 11. It says this, speaking of Moses, choosing rather to endure ill treatment with the people of God than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. He refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So he came to a place where he said, look, this is who I really am. I'm a Hebrew. I'm not an Egyptian. I've been raised in all of this. This is their expectations of me, and I'm not going to
I
turn on my
denounce it.
own people, you know.
And you even talked talked about the how he goes to college
Yeah.
in Egypt, goes to Pharaoh's University.
Yeah. PU.
PU. That was
PU.
pretty
Goes to
funny.
PU.
Made me think of Princeton
It,
University.
well, it makes me think of Bugs Bunny because, you know, there's a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's out there waving a thing going PU. You know?
I had looked that up with the kids this week about like where that PU came from.
Yeah.
And it's actually from the French, because apparently like that word is pew is like an expression for a foul odor in French or something like that. Neither of us are French, but yeah. And then the PU, it's like you emphasize it as you say it, you know. Okay, so anyway, back to Pharaoh's University. So he goes there, and you talked about all the things he learned, cosmogony, biology.
Yeah.
But then this was the man that instead of taking what they said,
Yeah.
he wrote in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. He writes the creation account, Genesis 1 and 2. Guy had been trained essentially in evolution. You know, they had somewhat of a Big Bang theory. The Earth was hatched out of an egg. It was an egg. Now you can get on there and Google this.
Yeah.
You just get on and ancient
Creation
Egyptian.
myths or whatever.
Yeah. They believed that there was this egg that had wings that flew around the universe. And when mitosis had taken place, it cracks, it pops, and out comes the Earth.
An egg with wings, that sounds like a Bugs Bunny cartoon
Well,
too.
yeah, it does, doesn't
The
it?
wings come out first and the egg just flies around. All right, here's one thing I tried to find, but I couldn't. So maybe I'll play Stump the Pastor here for a second.
Okay.
Because you talked about how that pitch that the woman, I guess Jochebed, is putting around
Yeah.
the basket was actually probably red, which that was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
You talked about how she's putting it inside and out. There's so many implications there, but I couldn't find like where that word lines up with the word to redeem. Like if she smears it and redeems
Well,
it.
the whole thing of ransom is to purchase, and that's what redeem is.
Okay. I'll have to do a little bit more study on that one. But I really did think it was interesting as well. And you guys, if you watched the message yesterday, you'll see
I was
this.
going to
about,
look this.
Oh,
word.
you're looking it
I was
up?
going to look up.
Okay.
I've got a. It's a Strong's Concordance on here, but it's not very good.
Oh, all right. Well,
But anyway,
I knew I was going out on a limb with that one a little bit. While you're finding that, I can also say, like, another point that's worth emphasizing again is how that the word, and we always say basket, because, I mean, essentially it was a basket where Moses was floating on the Nile, but that is the same word that is used in the Genesis account for ark.
Yeah.
So again, you have this idea of, and again, it points to Christ. There is this safety in this ark, and then the pitch,
Yeah.
which signifies the blood, is smeared there. Man, I just love that. That always increases my faith to hear.
well,
these
that
things
word
pointed to Christ.
covered right there is the word ransom.
Oh,
To
covered
ransom.
it. Covered
Yeah.
is in ransom. Okay.
Covered it with tar and pitch. The word covered is the word ransom.
Okay, got
To
it.
ransom, to purchase, to deliver, to save, to redeem.
Right. I love that.
You're redeeming it.
It's probably
And so that's the word that is translated ransom, covered.
probably a similar word to when they have to spread the blood on the doorposts later on.
Probably is. You know what? I did not look at that, but it may be.
Well,
That's a good thought. You know, there's only so much you can throw into a sermon before you're
Yeah,
preaching for 45
how dare
minutes.
you leave that out,
You know.
Pastor?
So, but anyway, it is interesting because Noah did the same thing to the ark.
Exactly. And that's the benefit so much of looking back at the Old Testament in depth, because you see over and over the way it both implicitly and explicitly points to Christ
Right.
and all the work that He's going to do. And when you just get the weight of all of this evidence, it makes you wonder. I don't know. It makes you wonder how the Jew can read the Old Testament and not see Christ in the New.
It baffles me as well, but in some places they do, like Isaiah 53, and
Wow.
they just choose to interpret it
They just
differently.
choose to look the other way.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, Lord help us that we don't do the same thing.
that's
Well,
for sure.
I guess before we close up shop, we should say how awesome it was to be able to worship with the Glacier Valley Dale.
Yeah, it was great. I love it when we do that.
Me too. And they got to baptize, which was fun. And then Pastor Andres came out and he threw a little bit of shade at us because he was like, we start at 10:45 and we just go till we're done. And he was just like, you Americans, like you guys just go. You have your little
Yeah,
paltry
y'all start-
75-minute service.
You start sweating about 50 minutes into the thing. Is this ever going to end? Is it ever going to end? Is it ever going to end?
Will we make it to Cracker Barrel on time?
Yeah, really.
Maybe one of the, well, we got the, and I was supposed to say this yesterday and I didn't, but we got the one service coming up on October 30th. And so I guess, but we can't go as long as we want to that day because we got it set up for Fall Fest and everything. So we can't,
Yeah.
even that day, we can't do a 2-hour service. One of these days, man.
They
Maybe
gave Criswell, they asked Criswell back in 1960, he said, listen, what would you really like to do? He said, I'd like to preach through the whole Bible. So on New Year's Eve of 1960 or 61, I can't remember, he started at around 7 o'clock. He preached for 5 hours, went past midnight. People came and went. Place was packed out. And that's when he preached his famous sermon, The Scarlet Thread. And he went from Genesis all the way through Revelation.
So the Scarlet Thread is 5 hours long?
Yeah, it's over 5 hours.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
There's a song that Preston Wood did.
Mm-hmm.
It's called, you've probably heard it before. It's called He Is, and it's the choir goes through, and in every book they say, in Genesis He's the creator.
Yeah.
In Exodus He's the deliverer.
Yeah.
And on and on. And in Leviticus He's the lawgiver. And it's just this huge orchestral thing. So I hadn't heard it before. Somebody showed that to me. I can't remember who it was. Was it Miss Tommy? Somebody showed it to me. So I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe next year being able to do that. I'm sorry. I'm delaying everything until next year. I'm not telling you all the stuff I'm doing this year. I'm letting it be a surprise.
Okay.
Because when next year rolls around, you're going to forget that I even said any of this stuff.
No. We've got it marked down. You think they're just looking at their phone. They're taking notes.
So you're not preaching October the 2nd.
No,
But on
I'll be here, but I'm not going to preach.
But on October the 9th, is that right? You told me that you're going to preach that one text God heard and God
I'm glad
knew.
you said that. That was before I realized that I was not going to be preaching.
So it's October 16th you're going to preach that.
We'll see. I'll have to go back and look at this. I know I'm going to do at least 2 more sermons out of this.
Exodus chapter 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Out of Exodus.
Well, because I really want to do that one, that Andrew
Out of
Peterson Deliver Us
Exodus.
song, because that really goes with, we're going to do that. So I'm going to plan it for the 16th. And you can,
Okay.
and then when you change your plan,
I'll let you know in a
you
little
can tell
bit.
me on Saturday when you
I'll
change
let you
your
know
plan.
in a little bit.
So that's going to be, well, I guess we covered it then, because I don't have to ask you where you're going with the message this week. And you already, it seemed like you had a good time at Truett McConnell this past week. It seemed like that was really a blessing.
Yeah, it was great. I went up to Spartanburg and I preached right out of Spartanburg, a little community called Packlet, and preached there. Spoke to the North Spartanburg Association, big group of pastors that came there, did that, and then came down to Truett McConnell for trustee meeting and president weekend. It was the presidential weekend there. So, yeah, and that was good. I had a great time there. And I head off tomorrow. I'm going to preach Wednesday in chapel at Anderson University.
That's exciting.
And then they have the Clamp Divinity School
Ooh,
there.
what a name.
So at lunch, they're going to serve lunch, and then I will speak to most likely the divinity students and the upstate pastors conference thing. So, and I'm doing something completely, I've never done this before. I'm gonna look at the history of preaching with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man, are they going to record that? I'd
I
really
don't
love
know.
to hear you do that.
I don't know if they are. I'm going to take them, where did preaching begin? I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to take them up through the Reformation. I'm going to stop at the Reformation, and I'm going to make a detour, and I'm going to talk about where did we as Baptists
Yes.
get our distinctives hermeneutically.
Well, that's your bread and butter now after
Well,
the
we're
PhD.
going to see. I'm going to talk about.
Where does it start? Are you going to start like with the book of Hebrews, because that's kind of a sermon?
I'm going to start back with the 8th century prophets. That's where preaching.
Eighth
Ninth and
century
8th century prophets.
BC,
Yes.
because they're
To the
delivering these
old prophets. To
these
the oldest. So that's where preaching begins.
Of course, that makes so much sense.
Our preaching comes from that. My first book in my PhD program I had to read was Aristotle's Art of Rhetoric. And Aristotle was the first to write down, the famous
Rules.
definition and rules of speech,
Yes.
logos, ethos, pathos. That every speech must have these three elements if your speech is going to be persuasive. They were trying, Athens became such a litigious society. See also America.
Right.
It became such a litigious society, and they had these orators who acted, as we would say, as lawyers. And he says, how do you want to present a case before a jury and persuade that jury? He said you have to have three elements: logos, pathos, ethos. The word, passion, and ethics. Well, 3 centuries before Aristotle ever came along, the 8th century prophets were doing that.
That's so interesting.
So,
Wow.
I take it back beyond Aristotle, which everybody looks back to Aristotle. Augustine studied Aristotle.
Sure.
Cicero, the Roman and Latin, they all looked back to Aristotle as the beginning
Chrysostom.
of this. So, I'm going to go back beyond that and say this was actually being done by them. And then it comes up through the Jews. And the Jews in the temple period, in the temple, first temple period, but we get the second temple period at the time of Jesus Christ, they were solid exegetes. They believed in doing the work of exegesis on Old Testament passages. Now they would, it was just a mental exercise for them. It was gymnastics. They never had the relationship. They never met the master in the text.
Is that what they were asking Jesus to do in Luke 4 when he sits down and teaches and said, this has now been fulfilled in your midst?
Well, he's doing that. He does exposition. He
Right.
takes an Old Testament, you have heard it said, and he quotes that, and then he gives an explanation of the text and interprets it in light of the Messiah. What was
fascinating.
God actually saying here? It's not, you shall not commit adultery. It's not that the actual, you get to that, if you've done this in your mind, you're already in
Yeah, the
sin.
Sermon on the Mount,
Yeah.
Matthew 5-7 or what have you. So that's, wow. I gotta hear this. I gotta make sure that they record that. Jared, I need you to go on the road with Pastor.
I don't
and
know if
record.
they'll record it up there or
Could you,
not, but
could you just be one of his stenographers like Origen had and just write down absolutely everything that he says? I threw in that Origen reference for you.
so, I'm going to talk about the school of Alexandria, which Origen started, and the school of
Are you going to talk
Antioch.
about Chrysostom,
Yes.
the golden-tongued preacher?
Yes. Golden Mouth.
All right.
Briefly, I'll throw him in, in the patristics there. But I'm headed toward the Reformation because that's where everybody identifies with the Reformation. And I want to take them off and say, nobody thinks about these people. Nobody knows about these people. Everybody writes these people off. But I'm going to give them 5 hermeneutical principles that they give us that's evident in most Southern Baptist preaching.
I can't wait for this.
So,
Okay. Well, all right. Well, we did a little extended one today. This is fun. I guess we'll see you guys later.
Oh, look.